Lensky. Kavami. Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.3, Mayor's announcements, a couple of announcements today. We did get a little bit of a cold snap. We are starting leaf collection this week, so there'll be 2 passes through, so if you get your leaves out to the curb, that, I don't know how else to say it, the sucky machine will come by and pick them up. We will make 2 passes, so if you don't get them all out right away, it'll come back. We did get some good news. Financially, with the budget adding our police officers, at least the initial word is we did receive the COPS grant, so there'll be some follow-up there, but at least the initial word is we did receive the grant for all 6, so that's great to see. So we'll be able to add 6 officers next year as part of the 2023 budget. What else do we got? Last week we had the North Dakota Bankers Association in town, so I was able to go out and give a speech out there and share all the good things that are happening in Grand Forks. And another great thing on Thursday, 100-year anniversary for the North Dakota Mill. So we'll have a couple of the senators and the governor will be in town. It'll be a good day. With that, all I've got for announcements. We'll move on to item 2, citizen comments. I know we've got a public hearing as well on some certification of special assessments. So if you're speaking on that, we do have you pulled aside for that. So if you don't hear your name called now, that would be why.
Sean Beauclair.
Mr. Bruclair, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Council, Mayor Brzezinski, Mr. Freeland. Tonight, I'd like to speak on Fufeng, on objection to the project once again. But first, I'd like to begin with some quotes I found very useful in my life and held up through the test of time that are relevant to that. The first one is, the smartest person in the room has access to the most information, the most effective utilizes it. Another one, Warren Buffett, you can't make a good deal with a bad person. Other one, past history is the best indicator of future results. So I'd like to move on to people that I admire that are relevant to all 3 of those, and that would be North Dakota's 2 senators, Senator Kramer and Senator Hoeven. Why Senator Craven? Why should he have such a big voice in this, and why should we listen to him? He serves on the Senate Armed Service Committee, hence has access to security clearance that none of us in the room have access to, more information. Again, would make him one of the smartest people in the room. And what has he said? He said to pass, right? Fufeng doesn't have a good fit in Grand Forks. Other things he said about China, you cannot count on them to be a reliable supplier, right? We all familiar with the rare earth elements. Us in agriculture, phosphates. How many are aware that China at one point supplied 30% of the world's exportable supply of phosphates? Right, I see a bunch of blank stares. October 2021, right, Xi Jinping, the president of China, said what? No more exportable supplies of phosphate. What happened? Price of phosphates doubled, right? So the average grower is spending $25 to $50 an acre. Now we're spending $50 to $100 per acre, the marginal supply. Again, China's never kept up to any of its ag trade commitments they made, right? Past indicator of future results. What makes you think if you allow Fufeng to build in Grand Forks that Xi Jinping, if we get in the outs, is not going to cut off supply, right? They want to produce amino acids which are necessary for livestock production, primarily pork and poultry. It's foolish to increase your exposure to an adversary of the United States. Let's move on to Senator Hoeven. Obviously, Senator Hoeven, Senator Kramer talk. I've had the opportunity to meet him twice. Found him a person of integrity and honesty. I followed his political career. I think one of the first times Senator Hoeven's been on the wrong side of an issue had to do with the pheasant opener. Some of you are senior, remember that? Maybe you don't. Right? You know when the last time I was on the wrong side of the issue? With the pheasant opener. Both Senator Hover, Senator Kramer are saying, you should pass on this, Grand Forks. It's not a good fit for you. Yet you proceed ahead. Other voices you have is the general dynamics that also said it doesn't have a good fit in your community. Every person that I've seen come before your committee has access to national security interests has said, this isn't a good fit, no way, no how, yet you proceed ahead. So for me, I have a hard time understanding. Show me you have more information regarding national security than all these people to go ahead with it. They're all saying no, yet you're going ahead. With that, I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bouclair.
Craig Spicer. Craig.
The floor is yours, Mr. Spicer.
Hi there. Trying to put something together and run a full-time business. Not like the city that has all the free time and all the time in the world to take care of this thing. So I'll get to it if I can find it. Sorry, bear with me. Somebody else want to speak quick? You got somebody else coming?
This is your time, Mr. Spicer. Please continue.
Is somebody else going to speak?
Yeah,
Could I
when their
come
time
back in a
comes,
minute?
This is your time. If you'd like to speak, you've got time now, sir.
Yeah, you're using that against me too, huh? Thank you. All right. 1 second then. And by the way, last week, when my time was running, okay, you didn't restart the clock, so I got kind of bumped out of about 3 minutes, because somebody told me that afterwards. Okay, here we go. Keeping score. Fufang, 2 years behind closed doors because of the city. Didn't want to expose it because they thought they'd leave. This is 9 months later, they're still here. Sold rich farmland to the Chinese, a forced manipulation, an annexation, and then a rezoning to Industrial 1. Okay? Took out the farmland of production. Okay, what did that cost us? Okay, keeping score. 233 jobs, that's what that was for. Fufang, 6.6 million gallons of water, 800 trucks a day, 3 to 6 unit trains a day. Pollution, water, soil, chemicals, millions of tons of chemicals being hauled in to take care of the corn, thousands of truckloads of cake material we don't know what we're going to do with. 233 jobs for you guys, okay? Grand Forks County gives the city $3 million for the water treatment plant. They said it had to be done, just happened to be at the same time Fufang came. 233 jobs. Okay. Millions of dollars of tax break, right out of the chute, pilot program for Fufang. 233 jobs. Kind of just getting a score sheet here. Build the plant out of salvage material, hoping to get that investment back. The plants came from parts from California that were 15 years old, that the plant had shut down. Those products or those materials, those salvage materials are being stored here in Grand Forks at a plant in the north end. 233 jobs. Concerned citizens filed a petition for the vote. Council Gosted says no, goes to court, but for 233 jobs. 3 judges deny the case in Grand Forks. Why? Don't really know. They move it to Ramsey County. They have to hire another attorney. Costs the city more money, but 233 jobs for Fufang. Good deal. Todd Phelan tells the police captain, or the chief I should say, to interview the voters. Probably costs the city more money to send the police over there. 233 jobs. Excuse me. Get over here. Jody Carlson comments on Facebook. Todd Phelan sends the police and FBI to her house. 233 jobs because of that. 81 North businesses hire an attorney for an annexation he addresses the council 1 week, the next week his office is burned down. 233 jobs. Just making points that all this stuff has transpired since you guys brought this on us in our city. Okay. Senators Hoeven, Kramer, Rubio, Cotton, all of them, congressmen, 51 of them send letters to the Treasury Department telling them, drop Fufang. 233 jobs for you guys, so a pretty good score so far. Council says moving on, Grand Forks Base, don't worry about it, might jeopardize it. We're moving on, says Todd Phelan. General Aeronautics says no to Fufang. Jeopardize the whole air base and their commitment to the Grand Forks with the drones. They say no Fufang. 233 jobs for you though. Okay? They mowed down the trees where we had eagles and wildlife on that very location. Okay? What happened there? They pushed down all the trees but the one that we thought there was one nest in. Okay, now the eagles, the American bald eagle, is endangered on that site. Okay, there's been nothing sighted there. They had permission from the Game and Fish to push those trees down. I don't know how you got that set forward. 233 jobs for the council. I'll give you credit for that. Okay, the 370 acres.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer.
Do I get my 3 minutes from last week, 2 weeks ago?
Thank you, Mr. Spicer.
Do I get my 2 minutes?
Mr. Spicer, thank you for your time.
Just one note.
Clock each time.
Okay, start the clock for 2 minutes, please. You owe me that much.
Mr. Spicer, you got 5 minutes. We've expanded
had
that
your
from
5
2
You owe me
minutes.
2 minutes from last week.
I don't know
Okay,
what you
real
spoke.
quick.
We've got another person
You
coming
annexed
up.
370 acres of land, right? Okay.
Mr. Spicer, your time's complete.
Because you manipulated that process with the 370 acres, okay,
Mr. Spicer,
so that you
please
could
sit
annex
down.
us.
Please sit
Now
down.
what happened is,
There's
one
another
second.
speaker coming.
Now what happened is you had to go back to a Chinese company that's
Mr.
under
Spicer,
investigation.
your
This
time-
Chinese company is under investigation, and you're buying land from a communist Chinese country that's under an investigation. That's illegal. You
Mr.
should all be
Spicer.
shut down for that purpose right there.
Your time is completed. Thank you.
You'll end up probably buying the property back again because Fufang's gonna get shut down. Good thing you showed up. He's gonna need that.
Dennis Cadlick.
Mr. Cadillac.
Mayor, council, thank you. And, you know, it's really a shame you guys got to stoop to what you stoop to, but you're either deaf, dumb, or stupid. Todd, we'll start with you. You pass those around. Because you people must have insurance, because you dress well enough, you must have insurance. You could get hearing aids if you need them. And if it's a lack of hearing aids, you know, are your ear canals plugged up? Do you not hear? Do you not listen? You know, I'm asked every time I go out on the street, what is the council's problem? That they keep hearing no, 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 but the council don't listen. You guys have not listened to a word that's been spoken here since I started coming back in January. And I've learned so much more. It's like Red River Bio. I've loved nothing better to see that plant up and running. What's going on with that? That's your last trophy thing you brought in here. And we're all sitting with that. Now you want to bring in something 10 times greater, and can you imagine the mess that's going to make? Because even before that's ended, that truck traffic, come on out and see our businesses. In '94, when they tried to annex us, all the council members and the planning and zoning members come out and looked at the businesses that they were trying to destroy or tax heavily. Come on out, I invite you out. I'm sure all the other people out there would be more than happy to have you come and visit, so you know what's really going on out there. You don't have a clue what you're bringing in or what you're destroying. And it's not right. And you do have some other agenda, because you're not stupid. You might not have the intelligence or the wisdom you should have, but that's your own reasoning. But you need to really take a step back, because even if you manage this, you're going to destroy so much for so many that nobody's ever going to have a kind word to say about you people again. You are doing this to yourself, and it's gonna stick with you like glue the rest of your existence. And it's a shame that it completely goes on. And person after person gets up here. Like Sean Blue Claire. You know, I'd put him up against any one of you. As a matter of fact, I challenge each and every one of you, let's go take an IQ test and let's see who's smarter. I challenge each and every one of you. Let's go take an IQ test and see who's smarter. Because it sure ain't intelligent running this operation. It's redundancy, it's ridiculous, and it's stupid. And like I said, you people aren't stupid, so what's the agenda? You know? And what agenda you think is coming is not going to be quite what you believe, because there's always a God factor that people don't put into the equation. And that's something you're forgetting again here. You know? That never seems to work the way people think it's going to work. And you know, you go out there now, and I invite you to come out. Matter of fact, if you want, I'll even come over to your house, pick you up, drive you out there, and drive you home. The truck traffic out there is just horrible. And this is going to be constant with this. But you got harvest going on right now. Come on out there. See how much you like driving up and down that 81 there. Do that. I challenge you to do that. Do that as human beings. Do that as members of Grand Forks. Do that as somebody that actually truly cares. If you're so committed on doing this Fufang project, come on out and see what's out there. Because I don't remember seeing a one of you inside my business. Not a one of you. I don't think Spicer's seen you over in his shop. I don't think Joe Dempsey's seen you in his shop. You know, Tri-Steel, have you ever stopped there? And I'm sure most of you probably never made it over to Andy's when it was open. Now it's a place for trans systems. And you know, this thing with that little clock of yours, it just demeans you so much. You're like little children. You play these little games. You're going to have a clock. You know, have you never read the Constitution? You should try it sometime. It's a real good read. You know, I read it quite often. I'd invite you to do the same. But like I said, I am more than happy if you're willing to give me a phone call. I'll come pick you up, and I'll take you for a ride down 81, and we can stop and see the businesses and the owners. And we can see where you're trying to stick this monstrosity, and we can even drive by the other one that's sitting there dead. And I wish you'd bring it back to life. I really, truly do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cadillac.
Jody Carlson?
I'm not up here yet, so don't start the
No,
clock.
I don't start it till you get up there.
Ms. Carlson, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go very quickly through some questions which I have emailed to the majority of you and I have not heard response. We would like to know what's happening out at the Fufang property right now. There is a pond being built. Don't tell me that it is a borrow pit. My husband has an excavating business. He's looked at those pictures. That is not a borrow pit. That is a pond or a big swimming pool, whichever it is. Also, when you look at the concrete culverts that they're putting in there, Mr. Reen, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go out there, but those are the same type of culverts that are coming out of the stormwater pond that is just a short distance from there. As far as that, then my next question is there a permit for that pond to be put in there? My understanding is that they did receive a permit for the dirt work and for the trees, but there's no permit for the pond. I would like to know if that's happening. I would also like to know if the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which was effective in June of this year, I did email all of you, let you know that on February 22nd, Mr. Tuderash said that they do import and that they will continue to import. Also, my email to you that indicates that Cirrus imports 20% of their products. I want to know if those companies have been through the process in order to get that exemption to continue any importation that comes from any prohibited region within China. I would also like to know who is in charge of Chief Nelson. You tell me that Mr. Phelan is, the police department tells me that Mr. Phelan is, but city code says Mayor Bochansky, you are the person that Mr. Nelson, Chief Nelson reports to. reinforcing that that property well under CFIUS review for you to purchase that property. Mr. Gosted, I would encourage you to take a look at the legalities of purchasing a property that's under CFIUS review. That's all I want to say about Fufang. Thank God, because I've had Fufang up to here, I can't hardly stand it anymore. I just can't believe how asinine it is. So I have been looking into some of the other decisions that our city council has made. One of the things that I do want to address is because I do pay pretty close attention to the vendors list that comes out every month as far as what's being paid out in bills. There is, besides Mr. Gosted's monthly salary of approximately $10,000, which now has increased with the new contract again that he wrote for himself, that salary has increased. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been paid out to Pearson Christensen. And I believe that there continues to be conflicts of interest with that. There was another issue that was written on there on September 1st under Mr. Gosted for Fufang litigation. It says for $2,700 for that. Work on the Fufang project on 9/29, work on the Fufang project from Pearson Christensen, $17,830. That was for September. Another one for September, the Red River Biorefinery that was charged out from Pearson Christensen. I thought that was closed, but I guess it's not. I would also like to know, one of the things that I have been reading about and I'm very aware of when it comes to business is when you are managing a budget, and I also I have not managed a city budget, but I have managed a multi-million-dollar budget in my career, so I'm very familiar with it. And I know that when you look at things, you look at it as if you are spending your own money. And how are you going to be a good steward of that money? I noticed on 10/3 of this year, the mayor and the city council to Sky's Restaurant spent $8,190. Was that for drinks, or it was with the League of Cities is what it was, that it was a sponsored event or something? I'm not asking you to respond to that. I'm just saying that that's what I saw on the last vendor list. I know, again, in having managed a budget and a company, that there are issues when you are going to wine and dine someone, besides that maybe you should pull a Trump thing and take them over to McDonald's, but drinks are not included. I'd like to know if there was an open bar at that League of Cities, that the bill ended up for a reception. It wasn't a meal, it was just, I'm sure, hors d'oeuvres and drinks for over $8,000. Mowing of the greenway, $30,000. There's lots and lots and lots of things with mowing, with housekeeping, with maintenance and fixing tires. And, you know, I don't know why we don't have those people hired within our garage to do those projects. We're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix these things that could be, and I also want to know for the Grand Forks Herald building, we're probably in it to about to the tune of about $500,000 right now for the setup and the fixing. And I also noticed a couple months ago on the vendor list, there's a $30,000 table. I'd like to take a look at that when and if I have that opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson.
They work for us.
Ally Spicer,
She left.
that's all the names I have.
Can I take her time?
Thank you. Moving on. 3 awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
3.1 Proclamations, National Chiropractic Health Month, October 2022, and Extra Mile Day, November 1st.
Thank you. Proclamation, National Chiropractic Health Month, October 2022. Whereas the opioid crisis continues to take a toll on the health and lives of millions of Americans and has worsened in some communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as many as 1 in 4 patients who receive prescription opioids for long-term care and non-cancer pain struggles with addiction. And from 1999 to 2020, more than 260,000 people died in the U.S. from overdoses involving prescription opioids. Whereas the American College of Physicians released updated low back pain treatment guidelines in 2017 that promote the use of non-invasive, non-drug approaches such as spinal manipulation and first line of defense against back pain before the use of back pain medication surgeries. Whereas doctors of chiropractic who focus on the whole person with their non-drug, non-invasive treatments for pain management, most notably spinal manipulation, can play an important role in helping patients lessen their reliance on pain medication. Whereas with the theme Chiropractic on the Front Line for Pain, National Chiropractic Health Month 2022 serves as a reminder to the citizens of Grand Forks that non-drug treatment for low back pain such as spinal manipulation provided by doctors of chiropractic can lessen or eliminate the need for risky or potential addictive treatments and should be utilized where appropriate before starting prescription opioid pain medications. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Grand Forks, North Dakota officially joins with the American Chiropractic Association in proclaiming the month of October 2022 as National Chiropractic Health Month. And Proclamation Extra Mile Day, November 1st, 2022, whereas Grand Forks, North Dakota is a community that acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within an entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Grand Forks, North Dakota is a community that encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly with the total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. Whereas Grand Forks, North Dakota is a community that chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of the community. So whereas Grand Forks, North Dakota acknowledges the mission of the Extra Mile America to create 500 extra mile cities and states in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day. Therefore, I, Brandon Bochensky, Mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, do hereby proclaim November 1st to be Extra Mile Day and urge each individual in our community to take the time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, also to acknowledge those around you who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make organizations, families, communities, country, and world a better place. Thank you. Moving on to 4, public hearings and second reading of ordinances.
4.1, public hearing and second reading of ordinance and final approval to amend the zoning map to rezone B3 General Business District, lots 6 through 12, Block B, Alexander and I's Addition, located at 624 North Washington Street, 1211 and 1215 7th Avenue North.
All right, thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone here to speak on item 4.1 today? All right, seeing none, the public hearing period is closed, and I'll open up for any comment. Got a motion to approve from President Sandy and a second from Mr. Veen. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
4.2, public hearing and second reading of ordinance relating to update of the food code.
All right, same thing. Anyone here to speak on item 4.2 related to the update of the food code? Seeing none, the public hearing period is closed. Same path. Any comment by council on item 4.2? Got a motion to approve from President Sandy. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Lunsky. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously.
And 4.3, public hearing on appeals, certification of special assessments, and approved findings on the projects that are listed on your agenda.
Thank you. Before we open the public hearing on that, I was going to ask if a council member could make a motion to have a special city council meeting for October 24th, just prior to the COW meeting. We received communication today from, I believe it's Mr. Sensky out there, from Mr. Sensky's attorney who had come down with illness, was unable to attend today, so we would postpone the reading of that, which is project number 7539.00, until next week at October 24th. All right, thank you. We got a motion and a second. Second from Ms. Osowski on that item. So that would be excluded from today's comments or discussion on 4.3 as far as when it gets passed. If someone wants to speak on it, they certainly still can on that particular project number. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. On to 4.3 in whole. So we'd be opening up now to public hearing. Anyone that has comment related to the appeal, certification, of special assessments on the various projects, so feel free to step up. We do have one. We have Travis Sudell. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, please.
No timer?
You got, nope, on public hearings you can speak.
I just wanted to bring, I've come to you guys, or Travis Sudell, 1023 Reeves Drive, and I want to talk about my assessment for the sidewalks. You guys are my last hope here. I've gone through the proper channels. I've spoken with the inspector, with the city, Nick, the engineer, Rachel, the assistant city engineer, Ed. I never got a call back from Al Grasser. I did speak with Mr. Phelan, and I did write a letter and spoke with Ward 4 council member Jeannie Mock when she was still there. So the problem is I've come to address the issues we had. I have a degree in geomatics. I have an associate's degree in civil engineering technology. I have 20 years experience in the construction field, and I was actually the city sidewalk inspector until 2020 here in Grand Forks. I have certifications in grading and base in North Dakota, Minnesota, certifications in concrete in North Dakota and Minnesota. I have certifications in concrete materials and pavement inspection. So I kind of know what I'm looking at when they do this stuff. And the problem started almost immediately when they came to remove the sidewalk. First of all, we moved into the house about a year ago, and then this spring I got a letter saying that I had to replace my sidewalks, or I could do it, or the city would do it. I elected to have the city do it. They came in and they parked their tractor on my berm. They squished down all my grass. When they removed the sidewalk concrete, they used a scooper and scooped it out piece by piece, and then leaving it uneven and unpacked. So when that happened, it rained, and that's when I called my inspector. My inspector didn't do anything. I brought it up again when they put in the granular material, that this was an issue. They ignored it. There was roots coming up through my base. I called again the city. I talked with Rachel. I talked with Ed. I offered, I told them that they're not following their own city spec as far as how they're supposed to be doing things. He called me a difficult resident and basically ignored me. That's when I got in touch with Mr. Phelan. He had spoken with Al Grasser, said Al was going to call me, never received that phone call. Then I got in touch with Jeannie. She was going to get in touch with City Hall. Nothing came of that. They just continued doing what they were going to do. I believe the final product is not based in solid construction technique. That was what I started with, what I asked them to come and take a look at. He threatened, Ed threatened to cut down a tree in my yard because the city spec calls for a typical 5-foot sidewalk. The ADA calls for a 4-foot minimum, so you can have down to 4-foot minimum on a sidewalk. There are several places that they replace sidewalk that are less than 4 feet. There's several areas in my neighborhood where they went around a tree. They did this out of, it looks terrible. The finished concrete is terrible. The hump they put in my sidewalk looks terrible. And basically, I would like someone to address this and hold them accountable, because I feel like the buck just stopped. I didn't get a phone call and nothing got repaired. Some of the issues that they messed up was the berm. They squished everything down. When they backfilled, they chipped up the sidewalk, the new sidewalk I'm paying for. They didn't, I can't mow it, it's not at a 4-to-1, we call for a 4-to-1 in our city spec. They just shoved it back in there, and then a month later, I have pictures, if anyone, if I could send it to you guys. I have pictures of this. They just packed it back in there, let it sit and bake for a month, and then they came and sprayed some seed on it. Well, nothing grew but weeds. So that it still looks terrible. I think I live in a nice neighborhood. My yard looks horrible. I was hoping they would come back until I got this bill basically saying it's finalized out and this was the end product. So again, I come to you guys just to ask if there's something you can do for me. When they poured my cross plate from my driveway to my approach, the city detail shows that's 2 separate pours, not tied together. It's a one monolithic pour, so they poured it all together. They tied it all together. Now that butts up from a big piece of concrete in the alley to my driveway with no expansion in there. We call for that expansion in there. I brought that up. It fell upon, I hate to use that term, deaf ears. I just believe that I got a poor product. I don't think it's gonna last. I got 20-year assessment on this thing, and I just don't know what else to do. I think I've gone through the proper channels. I worked my way up from the inspector to the engineer, assistant engineer, kind of fell off there, and I spoke with the mayor's office and my city council woman. So the only other thing I can think of is just basically, just to reiterate that they didn't follow their own spec, they didn't do a quality job, and now I'm getting charged tens of thousands of dollars for this sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know who the contractor was that did the work out there?
United Crane.
Okay. And we can check and follow up on that and see what the specs are following and go from there. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. Appreciate it.
Can I ask what your address was?
1023 Reeves.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Siddell.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Just sit
President
down.
Sandy.
So you're not questioning the cost of the sidewalk?
If you could
You're
remedy
just
it-
saying, well, sure, I understand that, but if the product had been installed to what you believe are appropriate specs, would you be here tonight?
I signed up, I actually paid for extra 6-inch concrete and rebar so that I would have a quality product in the
Got it.
end. I knew what I was getting into. It's just that I did not end up with,
Great.
with a product that I paid for. The city wouldn't pay for something like that. I would have lost my job or reprimanded if I would have allowed something like that on a city project. So for them just to come in and say, well, you're difficult, you're sour grapes, get lost, is basically what I was told, or the impression I was left with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Sir, do you have something, item 4.3, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council members. So you have my information, right? My background, my appeal.
Yep. This is a mowing matter, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
It's a mowing for
Yeah.
$400.
yeah, my appeal is small, peanuts for you compared to others. So over the summer, I received this fine. I call it fine because I have been living here in my room, in my house for more than 6 years. I take care of my lawn, everything very well. This summer, in May, I found a contractor to do the regular mowing, but he did once and then disappeared. So by the time city was doing inspection, or actually at that time I was trying to find the second mower contractor, and city did the mowing on June 24th, Friday, but I found one on June 23rd, but that second contractor was busy and he came to my house on Monday, so it was mowed again. Has already been mowed by the city. So I got this $400 fine, so I hope you can remove it, because the reason is I always take care of my lawn very well, and also not because of my fault, because of contractors, they just disappeared. Another reason is I think this department can do a better job of contacting me because if they let me know the issue. Actually, I have a security camera. I know the grass is a little bit tall. I was putting a lot of efforts to address that issue. So probably the person issued those ticket didn't know my efforts, and also I hope they change the way to notify me, send me email or something, or call me, so this can be avoided.
Sir, what was your name and your address?
My name is Huipu, Huipu. Address is 437 Burdick Court.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank
Any
you.
questions for? No. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yep, please, Mr. Weigel.
Mr. Phelan, when they go out, typically are these from complaints that are received from other neighbors? Is that how this works? Or Mr. Bedard, I see you stepping up there.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Wagle, members of the council. Yes, the mowing is done based on complaints. We publish notice in the newspaper multiple times per year. We also send personal notice when a complaint is received. We did that in this case, and Mr. Hugh Pugh did have correspondence with us. He shared some text messages, and I've been reviewing them here just prior to the meeting. And I can see through the course of time, he did have a mowing service hired in the spring. It appears that he had stopped coming. And that intersected with our letters, and so he had reached out, and the text that he has sent me has corroborated that. To his point, we didn't, if we make an administrative error, we would certainly address that administratively. And certainly sometimes ownership changes during the course of a year, and we would normally administratively take care of that as well. In this case, it looks like we've just crossed lines as far as his mowing service had quit. Our mowing service got there before his second hire. If in your discretion you wanted to reduce the amount to the amount incurred by the city, that would be $125, I believe. $125 would be the cost incurred by the city.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bedard. I guess leaving council's hands.
Can we motion to reduce it?
Yeah,
Okay, I motion to reduce it to what the city paid, 125.
okay. We got a second from Mr. Weber. All right, any further comment? Got one from Mr. Sandy. I think Mr. Hupu has left too, but
I think as a matter of policy, if people don't mow their grass after getting multiple notices like that, and we have to go through the effort of hiring someone, even though we only paid $125, as is pointed out so eloquently here tonight, it's not our money. The people that go into at the health department and sending out the notices and dealing with it, there's overhead involved, and I'm not saying I don't feel for the gentleman. I do. I don't think we should charge. I wish we had a company that we could just call them and they would mow for free. It's unfortunately that's not how life works. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel bad, and if people want to vote for this to reduce it, they're welcome to. I'm not going to support that because that's not what our policy is. And I think unless we want to change our policy, I'm totally open to having a discussion about policy when we're talking about budgets, but that's not right now. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you, President Sandy. Ms. Storstad, you have something?
Sure. I was just going to remind and for new council members too, what happens with mowing is there's a $150 administrative fee and then double the cost. So you have the double, the 125 and 150. That's how you get to the 400.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm sympathetic to what President Sandys just suggested, but what I heard from city staff was that there was some, maybe some administrative irregularity here, and I thought I heard a recommendation from staff that we might consider this reduction. So that's the reason I seconded Mrs. Sowski's motion.
Mayor Baczynski and Councilmember Weber, this city council, in recent history, you have reduced the mowing when there's been extenuating circumstances for individuals, because this city council has, prior city councils have approved mowing, and there is a penalty element to it. And the intent was, when the city council did do that, people were neglecting their lawns. The city would come in and mow because it was too close to what they could do for a mowing service. And so people were becoming quite frustrated, and they were using the city as a mowing service. So the intent was really to motivate people to get the job done and not have the city come through and to provide this penalty. However, in the recent history with the city council, you have reduced them down when there's been confusion or some sort of extenuating circumstances, of which I think Mr. Bedard is saying there was communication, perhaps there were some lines crossed. It's maybe the exception to the rule if you do want to move forward and reduce it accordingly.
In fact, in my experience with these lawn mowing fines, it often goes on for weeks and weeks before we get it mowed. So the fact that the city was out there mowing it in June, we acted very quickly, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, but maybe this, in the effort to act quickly and to address the neighbor concerns, there was this slip in communication is what I'm getting a sense of here. But I'll listen to more from Mr. Bedard.
Mr. Bedard, anything else to add?
Just to reiterate, if we followed the process, but he did demonstrate to us that he had a prior contractor and that contractor didn't show up. Our notice was sent on the day he was reaching out to a second contractor, according to his text messages. And so he had made observations, he says, through his cameras on his home, and had reached out. His mowing service was supposed to be there Monday, and ours got there Friday. So we didn't do anything wrong on our part. However, he has demonstrated that he was making efforts, and that's what my review of his text is, my assessment.
All right, any further comments? All right, so we have a motion to reduce it to 125. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries 6-1 with Sandy dissenting. All right, any further comments as part of public hearing for item 4.3? All right, seeing none, the public hearing period is closed. So open up to council to make a motion on item 4.3. Got a motion approved from President Sandy. We've got a second from Vice President Weber. Seeing nothing further, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 5 action items. I believe we need 5.1 through 5.4 pulled. Is there any other items that council wanted to pull for discussion tonight? For further discussion? I guess not, so we'd move for approval on 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, and 5.11. We've got a motion approved from Mr. Veen and a second from Mr. Weber. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously, so we'd be on to 5.1 through 5.4. Maureen?
Sure. 5.1, resolution authorizing issuance of $1,778,000 water reserve revenue bond, Series 2022C. This is a SRF loan.
So this one didn't come to the cow, is that correct? So if you're going to give some insight, let the council know what's happening with that, Ms. Storstad.
Yeah, so as your staff report states, this is to fund water main inspection projects funded by the water utility for the infrastructure. This program, we do benefit through the state's financing mechanism with the rate of 2% over 30 years. With it just comes the resolution for issuance of the bonds that we are looking to get approval for tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Storstad. Any comments, council? Seeing none? No? I got a motion to approve from President Sandy. We have a second?
Second.
Oh, that was a second from Mr. Weigel. Any further comments on 5.1? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.2 is approval of soil disposal agreement, Franklin on Fourth.
Thank you. Mr. Phelan, did you have, Ms. Lipsch, please?
Good evening, Mayor Baczynski and council members. As part of the planning for the Franklin on Fourth project across the street, soil testing was conducted, and from that soil testing, they determined that there was petroleum-impacted soil on the premises, most likely from when it was a gas or service station years ago. Franklin on Fourth developers did do some testing on that materials. They did a TCLP test, and those tests were conducted to ensure the material was not hazardous waste. They continued, we worked with the Department of Environmental Quality to ensure the landfill could take that material and to determine what steps were necessary to segregate the material and classify it. The developers also did some PID testing, which indicates the presence of volatile gases, and those tests help us determine or develop a heat map that Mr. Gosta is going to be talking about. The heat map shows us where the impacted petroleum soils are located on that site, and so we will use that heat map once it's finalized. We'll send that heat map to the DEQ, get their approval of that heat map, and then the items, the heat map will show you where those impacted soils are and where those non-impacted soils are. The impacted soils will go to our MSW landfill. The non-impacted soils will go to a stockpile at our MSW landfill site and be used for daily cover.
So this is probably a left, or let's call it a runoff from the old Lions Auto Development. This is some materials that they may have had on there or prior that are still haunting us essentially as a brownfield development. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so the reason that we developed this agreement, and Mr. Gosted can speak to this as well, is we can use this material is useful at the landfill for daily cover. The uncontaminated material is. The contaminated soil we'll just take and handle it properly and go to the MSW landfill. And then Franklin on Fourth developers won't have to do additional testing to that soil once the DEQ approves this process.
And what's the MSW landfill?
The municipal solid waste. It's the lined landfill.
Okay. Mr. Goss, do you have?
I can just briefly talk about the contract itself. It mimics what Ms. Lips described. That heat map is the Exhibit F, and the areas that are in orange, I understand it, that's where the impacted soil is at, the orange outlined, and that's crosshatched at Exhibit F. What the agreement calls for is they can deposit those impacted soils subject to our DEQ limitations. It's like 3,000 tons or 3,000 tons per month and 20,000 tons per year. Although I think that a developer may ask for a waiver of the 3,000 tons per month. We'd have to get approval from DEQ in order for that to be accomplished. It also calls for the developer to provide us at least 30 days before they deliver those impacted soils, kind of delivery schedule, so we know that we can take it. There's also a provision about certification, so we know that in each delivery they have to certify where they got the soils from, whether in the impacted area, the non-impacted area, so we can track that. And then there are protections with respect to the deposit itself that they can't exceed the characteristics or traits of the soil that we will discover through the testing. It has to comply with our landfill permit through DEQ. It can't violate any federal or state laws, things like that. The one thing I want to add is that if that certification is proved to be erroneous for some reason, we can terminate the contract at that point and also seek damages, including any penalties and fines that the city may incur because of that. This agreement only deals with this soil, not any other materials. So if there's other materials, they'd have to have a separate agreement with us. The term goes through the end of next year. That was at the request of the developer. They don't expect it to go that long, but they didn't, in case something would happen, they didn't want to have to revisit this again next year. So it's the date, it's earlier of December 31 of 2023, or when all of the impacted soil has been accepted at the landfill. The compensation is $150,000 from the developer as well for this. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gosted or Ms. Lipsch?
Mr. Gosted, so just for clarification, in consideration of $150,000, that's the language used in the staff report, the developer is paying the city $150,000 and the city will take this soil?
That's correct. The developer is paying the city the $150,000.
There is no cost to the city on this, other than the burden of receiving these materials?
Correct.
Very good. And for that burden, we're receiving $150,000?
Correct.
I'll move approval.
Got a motion to approve from Vice President Weber. Do we have a second? Second from President Sandy. Any further comment or questions on the item?
Just that this is not uncommon in an older part of town to find these kinds of contaminated soils, right? This is decades of varied uses that just occur.
It's probably environmental, back in the, whenever the Lions Auto was first built, probably wasn't at the level it is obviously today. And
right.
It's good that you have a development. That's the cost of these brownfield developments. You see the extra cost when you have to do things like that, but it's good that we're able to get it out of there, I think. And again, further to add?
Agreed.
Yeah. Dan, you got that? Good for you?
I have nothing to add. I'm not sure I'm the person qualified to answer whether this is usual, but it's not unusual that a long-standing development that has a gas station there before had some issues with it, so.
I would say it's another important reason why we have municipal, when we were citing the municipal solid waste facility, is for moments like this. Otherwise, you'd be trucking this dirt 70 miles from here. So it's an economic development asset that we have with the city of Grand Forks, and thank goodness we have it for Grand Forks in the region.
All right, any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.3, Amendment Number 1 to PKG CMR Owner Agreement for Pre-Construction Services, Project 8483.
Mr. Phelan, this one also didn't make it to the committee of the whole, is that correct?
It did not. So this is another updated, and we've got a handful of them, and one of the reasons that we have 5 Mondays this month, and so if it's a little ways away for final approval, which would, the next final approval for City Council, once you create a special meeting, would be November 7th. In this case, this City Council, you've approved PKG as the construction manager at risk for the wastewater treatment plant. You have approved a pre-construction agreement with PKG to perform some value-added engineering and construction services in advance of us bidding the wastewater treatment plant. This agreement, what I'm asking you for is to move forward with a $145,000 amendment to the pre-construction services. And the reason why I'm asking that is PKG has asked, one of the most expensive part of any large facility projects for public works or water works is the foundation. So we're going to be building basins that are going to require piles to be driven. And so the structure is stable and is going to be there for a long time. What PKG has asked for, if you know where the wastewater treatment plant's out by the airport. It's near where our existing facility is, and where this will be adjacent to it. It's near where our lagoons are. So out in that area, the soils are quite challenging. And so that's the reason why we have an airport and we had a landfill. It was really bad area of town to develop, and so we put a bunch of public assets. To that end, what PKG is asking for, if they can do several test piles, they can help perfect what they think we're going to have to do from a site perspective. And so one of the things you can do when in doubt, a structural engineer is going to over-design the foundation of a basin, because they're never going to be caught wrong on anything. And so one of the advantages of a construction manager is that they can refine what actually needs to be done with driving piles and creating the foundation. But before PKG wants to do that, just to protect themselves, they've asked for an amendment so that they can drive some test piles. And based upon those test piles and some of the analytics, they can then further refine what kind of foundation we need to put in place and bid as part of these wastewater treatment plant basins. And so really, I think the goal and the expectation is by upfront spending some additional funds, this $145,000, it's going to go a long ways in the design perfection. It's going to go a long ways in really having a suitable foundation that's constructed, but not overly engineering and constructing a foundation where maybe we can minimize some costs on this. When we know with inflation right now and with cost, whether it's concrete or steel, costs have gone up. And so this is really a kind of a cost containment and reduction. If they can do do this analysis and come back and really help the engineers to refine what the foundation package should look like. So that's what's in front of you this evening. They would do this sooner rather than later because we are going to come back to the city council this winter to ask to move forward with some foundation packages for the wastewater treatment plant. Again, similar to a stormwater pond, those are construction activities that we can do really well during the winter months. And so we are going to ask, so this is why it's time sensitive for us to do this analysis up front. With that, I'd answer any questions. And we also have Wayne Grishewski here from A2S, who's working with PKG if you have any more specific questions that I'm not able to answer as your administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Open up for city council comment. Yep, Mr. Veen, please.
No, I appreciate what you've talked about, Todd. I think that's the advantages of having a CM come in. And I know the original cost was like $525, but this is actually going to involve driving piles and doing a bunch of additional work, which is actually contracting type of work, right?
It would be. Yep. And I think they're going to plan to self-perform a lot of this work themselves, but it is really construction.
But it's more than managing the property. It's actually construction, and that's why there's what I thought was a fairly high cost to this in comparison to the contract. But really, I'm assuming you guys have reviewed it thoroughly and the costs are in line. I think the process is in line for what we're trying to do. Again, I think that's the advantage of the process you're using. It really will result in a better project, cheaper cost for us long term, is the way I would see it. My only concern has been when I voted against this the first time was because I think we're getting ahead of the game here, and that hasn't changed. So technically, I think you're right. Politically, I think I'm not in favor, so.
That's fair. That's fair. With these projects, the foundation's the key. If we don't get foundation right on these waterworks type projects, there's challenges. So we really want to perfect what we're trying to do here.
Mr. Weber, please.
Foundation's always important on any job, but with a project like this involving large holding tanks, a mistake in the foundation is hugely problematic. We don't want that. But because of that importance, we're at the risk of someone else overbuilding it to make sure that there isn't any future problem. And the expense that the CMAR is incurring here is actually construction expense that we would have either way, but it also gives them information to assure that the job's being done properly but not overbuilt. Is that
I think that's well said, Councilman Weber.
I'll move approval.
Got a motion approved from Vice President Weber. Do we have a second? Second. Second from President Sandy. Open up to further comment on the item. All right, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I believe we got, was that a 5-2 or 4-2? Sorry. 5-1. 5-1? Oh, Kamami's on here. Why don't we just, I want to run through that real quick just to make sure I got that correctly. We'll start with Veen. We'll go 7-1 this time. You can go ahead and listen, leave it off if you like. Yeah, simple yes or no roll call vote, yeah.
All right, we'll start with Veen.
No.
All right. Weber?
Yes.
Osowski?
No.
Weigel?
Yes.
Lunsky?
Yes.
And Sandy?
Okay, 5-2, thank you. Appreciate it. Motion carries.
5.4, Bronze Arbor donation request.
Ms. Richards, you're taking this one?
Yes.
All right, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, about a year ago, council approved funding for the Public Arts Commission, or PAC, to do a variety of things, including using some funding for public art maintenance and infrastructure. So one of the proposed uses that PAC has for that infrastructure fund is to relocate the bronze arbor sculpture that was formerly at Arbor Park, 15 South 4th Street, and install it at University Park. PAC put together a committee that included PAC board members, Sally Opp, Kathy Armacost, and Dean Opp, and a couple of local artists, including Adam Kemp, who is in the audience tonight. They looked at sites throughout the community and recommended University Park as the best spot. And Mr. Kemp can certainly answer any questions you have about that site selection process. Your staff report includes a request from PAC asking for the donation of the art. Park District has agreed to have this installed in University Park, subject to city concurrence and a maintenance MOU with PAC. Your packet also includes some visuals that show the sculptures themselves, as well as the portion of University Park where it would be installed, and just some views, of what that would look like. So the request tonight is not for any funding to do this, but just for council to adopt a resolution by a minimum of 5 votes to waive the public sale requirements of these art pieces and transfer them to PAC for installation of the arbor in University Park and that companion piece at a future public site to be determined. Staff report has the code citation that kind of references why we, under these circumstances, could waive the public sale requirements for PAC in this case. So I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Mr. Kemp. This little bit of urgency, we're skipping the usual process because there is a desire to get it done yet this fall if possible. So rather than wait for this standard Cal Council cycle, which would push us out pretty late for pouring concrete, we're coming before you tonight with this request.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Have you had any other requests? I mean, the arbor's been in there since 2017, so we're coming up on, well, year 6 next year. Has there been any other requests for usage? I mean, I'm glad to see we've got a good site, good usage, but has there been anything others? Any others?
There has been, discussion that it needs to be at a site with good public access, good parking. Weddings like to be held there. It needs to be a spot that can be reserved. There's some other spots that have been looked at, but University Park does seem to fit the bill really nicely. It certainly leaves it in the public domain and readily available for public use.
All right, we got any comment, any council comment?
I have questions.
Yep, Ms. Osowski, please.
What's this table?
That was a companion piece that was part of the original installation early on. I think it was taken out of Arbor Park after just a very short time because there was concerns about it being a little bit dangerous. But I think the idea was that, the arbor was up here and that was at the base that showed the leaves that would fall. So it was, it looks kind of like a giant coffee table, but I think it was meant to be a base that you could stand on under the arbor, but it has been stored for most of its existence.
So will that go into University Park also? Or?
No, PAC has requested that it be donated to them as a piece of public art, but for installation at, some future site to be determined, not as part of this installation at University Park.
The arbor, City Council, Mayor. Todd, Meredith. By the way, is the gentleman from Reeves Drive still here with the sidewalk? He does know that being called difficult is a compliment around here, right? We are in the passive-aggressive capital of the world. Well, that's what my wife calls me anyway. We're still married. And we got married under the arbor. What happened with the table is it started getting in the way, and then it started to travel around the park. And unless you secure it within a certain code height and whatever, it becomes a danger. The original artist who designed the landscaping part that embraced the whole tree arbor itself, there were two artists, she originally designed that to be part of when the trees fall down, that it complement, the falling leaves complement the table. It became a hazard, in other words. And then the arbor itself became a place where people got married, graduated, it got in the way. So that's the answer to the question. As for what it's going to be, there was discussion about having it installed opposite, but we couldn't agree on the design. The University Park site was chosen because it was the one none of us argued about. So it was consensus, which if you knew the personalities involved is quite something.
Okay, what is this artwork called? Like, does it have a name?
It is actually called, it's a bronze tree arbor, but it's called the arbor.
It's called the arbor,
Yeah.
okay. And, like, how tall is it? Can children
think it's about
climb up
12
on this? Is it safe for
I think
children?
it's 12 feet. You can't, like, so somebody asked me yesterday, can you reach up and climb? No, you can't. You have to, if you want to
Do you
get
think
up
a
on it, you
child
can.
could?
And people have stood on it, and it will take your weight because it's welded bronze.
Okay, I mean, do you think that it could be a danger to children in University Park?
I think everything is a danger, but no, I don't. It wasn't a danger in Arbor Park.
That didn't have a playground though, did it? Does it?
No, and that's a fair question. The distance between the playground, are people going to play on it? I can say that they're going to play on it wherever you put it. But it's designed to take whatever punishment you throw at it. Whether you can place it anywhere to stop children playing on it, I can't answer that question because I don't think you reasonably can.
I do think University Park is, although it's used by other citizens, I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of children in the
Yes, there
area
are.
that, I mean, there are schools around there. So
Well, we also we were down the road from Central High School, and there were never any real problems with those kids vandalizing it or getting on top of it.
And it's certainly not immediately adjacent to the playground equipment at University.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, I guess I have I don't care about donating it,
Right.
but I think it's ugly personally. So I would not like to see it in University Park, but
That's
that's
a
just
fair
my
statement.
personal
I like that.
opinion. So.
Well, you don't want to know what I felt, do you? Because I go beyond ugly. That's why it's called consensus. There's all kinds of opinions about the piece.
I just don't want a bunch of artwork like the falling pieces of concrete that are sitting out by the Alaris to continue to be
Well,
put
that-
up around the city. So that's
Well,
my
I'm involved
opinion,
with
I
that
guess.
too, but, well, rather that than indifference. Excuse me, I got somebody else calling.
So I had a photography business 100 feet from this sculpture, and I've taken hundreds of pictures, and I've never seen anyone get hurt, except for the foundation that used to be underneath it.
Yeah.
Was falling apart, but I have 2 climber kids, and they couldn't climb it. So I don't see it being a hazard at all.
All right, any further comments?
I did have a question.
Please.
Will it be built up like it was at Arbor Park?
One of the things we noticed about Arbor Park is it functioned mostly at one level. In other words, people use it for weddings and photographs. So I thought that it was going to be at ground level, as it was in Arbor Park, excuse me. I don't think we want to build it up because we're also trying to maintain the landscaping that's already been done around it, which is the rock installation and all the pathways. So there's enough landscaping in Arbor Park to take that design into consideration, I think. That's just my opinion. I like the fact you don't like, I enjoyed that. That's good. I like art criticism, it's my favorite sport. I got married underneath it, and my marriage has survived, so it's got special powers. In fact, yesterday I bought a carton of milk and opened it before finishing the other one, and I've survived a day. So, if that's any indication of its powers. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we appreciated the comedic relief as well. Yeah, any other further questions or opinions on what it looks like? Mr. Sandy?
I think this is a great use of the piece. I'm looking forward to getting it back out on public display so that the people of our community can get back to getting their weddings done under them and, high school graduation pictures taken. So I will move approval.
All right, we've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We got a second from Ms. Lunsky. So motion President Sandy, second from Ms. Lunsky. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we've got for action items this evening. Move on to 6, information items.
6.1 is your investment portfolio summary as of September 30th.
Thank you. Moving on to 7, approval of minutes and bills. 7.1.
7.1 is the vendor list as is presented.
Thank you. Got a motion to approve the vendor list. Got a motion to approve from President Sandy. We got a second from Mr. Veen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 7.2, your minutes from May 2nd.
Mayor, a question?
Yes, please, President
These
Sandy.
minutes are 5.5 months old?
I think we're trying to get
I read
caught up.
them. I don't remember yesterday most of the time, let alone 5.5 months ago. I wasn't going to go back through and watch the meeting over to, so are we that far behind on our
Yeah,
minutes?
who do we have? I know we've been short in finance and they've been trying to catch up, so I don't know if Maureen wants to take that or Mr. Phelan, please.
I'm not trying to put a
No, and-
microscope
It'd be nice to
on
know the
anyone. It's
timeline,
just-
but yeah.
It's a lot, this is
I don't
getting a little old.
disagree, yeah.
Yeah, no, President Sandy, Mayor, members of council, we have discussed as staff and we do know we're behind and we're working to get it caught up, so.
All right. With that being said, do we got a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Motion approved from Mr. Weigel. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Weber. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. City Administrator comments. Any comments this evening, Mr. Phelan?
I have a handful of updates for you and City Council. I want to give you a heads up. As you recall, you approved bids on 2 large stormwater ponds, regional stormwater ponds. One was, down south off of 62nd at Prairie Development. The other one was related to the Fufang project and also the adjacent Highway 81 area. And I want to provide you heads up, and Mr. Craig Spicer, he's called me the last couple of weeks to see if we have regarding, I think we called it the Project Peony Stormwater Pond, Regional Pond. So we are finalizing what those bids are and applying them to the Fufang project and also the adjacent Highway 81 properties. And so as you recall, this City Council, you approved that stormwater pond in particular 2 ways. If the Fufang project moves forward, there would be no special assessments to the adjacent Highway 81 area. If Fufang did not move forward, there would be an assessment, and it was, and the city would not be paying the balance. And so there's about a 50% assessment that would go to the balancing areas. And so what engineering and finance are working on right now is finalizing those particular details, because I know some of the adjacent property owners want to know there, and obviously Fufang wants to know that too. We don't know for certainty what the outcome is going to be, but we are planning on sending out a letter with an attached estimated cost, doing it both ways. And so when I spoke with engineering and finance, we thought we'd have that letter out in the middle part of the week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd be sending it out, and I know Mr. Spicer's asked for that. So that will be going out. We're going to send it out in not only to Mr. Spicer, but the whole group out there, and then get it sent out early enough this week so that if people do have questions, they can follow up with finance on their particulars. I want to give you a heads up because you may get some calls on that, so we're working on that. Thank you, Mr. Spicer. We're also working on the, just so you know, we do work on the Fufang project on a weekly basis, and so that project continues to work on design and those types of elements. We continue to work on those various activities too, from a planning and a design perspective. So just so you know that we are continuing to work on that. We do anticipate, we're not sure when CFIUS is going to come back with their opinions. whether that's going to occur within the first 45 days or if they're going to ask for an extension on that. But we continue to track that as we move forward, and we'll have to see where it goes. And I think that CFIUS national security review and decision is going to line up well for what we're doing from a planning and engineering perspective, because we were really targeting some of those bids would move forward in that February, March timeframe. I think in advance of that, we're going to have a decision from CFIUS regarding that we'll be able to review in advance of you approving any of those bids that would come next, kind of that March timeframe to move forward next year construction. So just so you know where everything is lining up, I think we're still aligned and doing well on kind of where we're working in parallel. There were a few questions that came up today. The city of Grand Forks, the great thing about the Alair Center is there's only 2 locations right now that can house the North Dakota League of Cities Conference. One is...
Sorry. Mr. Phelan,
Yes.
could I ask a question about what you've just discussed and then let you go on? Sorry to interrupt like that. But you indicated that we continue to work on Fufeng.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I understand what that means. If there's a landowner in town looking to build a garage, they bring, or some sort of structure, there's a process of the city needing to approve plans and make sure that things are moving forward. When you say that we're continuing to work on Fufeng, because it's such a large project, there are many aspects of that that are coming to the city for review. But the city is not actively engaging in any of this specific infrastructure to support this project. That is all on hold, waiting for the CFIUS review.
We are, yeah.
So like any property owner in town, if they bring plans forward to the city, we have to consider those and review those and make decisions about those. And that's what you mean by we continue to work on Fufeng.
Some of those items in the development agreement, what I mean is some of those answers that people want. And we hear that every week here. And, even Councilmember Vian says, I have a hard time moving forward until I have the answers. I just want to let you know that we continue to work on those answers that are concerning to people. Whether they're air permitting, whether they're, all those various things, because we don't know how the CFIUS ruling is going to undertake. Whatever that comes forward, there's other things that we're concerned about as part of the project. And certainly national security has moved forward, but we certainly, if we just sat on our hands and people want answers, and we've heard that over and over again, just so you know, what I'm trying to tell you is that we're working on those answers.
Answers to those 20 contingency points in the development agreement.
And so
the questions that we've heard many people bring forward to the council, we had the same questions, and we continue to investigate those matters. Thanks.
I just want to line up that there's a concern with national security. That's being reviewed. We are reviewing some of those other concerns that we have as the city of Grand Forks that have been espoused here with citizens. We're going to continue to work on those questions and concerns so that we can answer those too at the same time. This is there are more concerns than just national security, and we continue to work on those resolutions of those so that we can work on those in parallel.
Thanks for that clarification, and again, my apologies for interrupting.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
There were a few questions that came up. Number one, I was saying the North Dakota League of Cities, it's a 250 to 300 person conference. It's really right now because we have the Alair Center, and Bismarck and Grand Forks are the only ones that can host it now. So it's grown to a point where it's really great that we have people coming here every other year. We did host the reception, and there's always a welcome reception that the community is asked to host for all the people that are coming into town. And so the city of Grand Forks did host, and we did host it at the Skies events. And we also did pay for the food. We did not pay for any alcohol, just so you know that. So it was a welcoming reception that we brought people to, and so just so you know what we paid for as part of that. Number two, the greenway mowing, and we have a large greenway, and we should be very proud of it and how well maintained it is. And so every year or every other year, whenever we bid these, sometimes we do 2-year contracts, you approve mowing bids for the greenway and also other associated large tracts of property that we own for the city of Grand Forks so that we can maintain our property accordingly. And certainly we could hire a lot of people, but it's really challenging with seasonal activities that to hire people for 3 months when the people that we hire for the city of Grand Forks have become employees are generally hired over a 12-month period of time. And so that's why we've always asked for the city council to approve mowing contractors to mow that. So that's what you hear on that. I think regarding what is Fufang doing, what is Gowan working on, and again, they've worked on some road work out there. They've done some, grubbing of trees and that sort of thing, and they're doing a construction laydown area. That's what's going on out there. The city of Grand Forks, as I just mentioned, that stormwater pond, where the city of Grand Forks, probably as early as this week, we're going to be starting to work on that stormwater pond. So we're the ones that are working on those stormwater ponds. There's no wastewater pond being built or anything like that, and the stormwater itself, the pond itself is going to be constructed by Zavrel, who you approved their bid just a few weeks ago. So with that, those are some of the updates that came up. We continue to work hard and on those things. If there's any questions, I'd certainly be willing to take them.
A similar clarification on that stormwater pond. Once we annex property, we have responsibility for that property, including adherence to federal law, which requires that we put in infrastructure for stormwater.
We do.
And that's what we're doing there.
And I think when we annex the property, we want to make sure all the water-related activities are within, and so that's why we're working on the wastewater, water, and stormwater to make sure that, we can serve that annexed area.
It'd be illegal and irresponsible for us to do otherwise, right?
Well, we certainly want to follow our rules of annexation, and certainly we have permits on water, wastewater, and stormwater, primarily with the state of North Dakota.
Thanks.
But there's a pond out there, and there's a concrete.
Any further comments, Mr. Phelan?
I don't have.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Veen, please.
Yeah, for Mr. Phelan, you talked about some of the project. Really, with the development agreement, the city is not liable for any of the costs that we have accrued to date, right?
Yep. And I think that's where that $5 million letter of credit came through. And so all the studies we're doing all relate to work regarding Fufang, so that's all covered.
Yeah, so that's all, that's part of why we had that agreement.
Yes.
And so I didn't want the city to be put at risk at this point, right? And when we said the project is put on hold, is that explain
Yeah.
maybe my terminology is wrong. Can you help me understand that?
When the project's put on hold, we're not going to move forward with Fufang-specific infrastructure construction. And so all of that has been put on hold. And so any of the planning and engineering things that we are reviewing and doing, that's all part of that letter of credit, because we knew even back in February that we're going to do a lot of planning, a lot of engineering well in advance of any construction. And what if would happen is that the project doesn't move forward, we would be hampered with all those bills to pay those. At the same time, we know, Councilmember Veen, you've asked a lot, I want answers sooner rather than later. And that really was the compromise with Fufang, is that we're willing to move forward, but we need financial security in advance so that if the project does not move forward, there's an entity there that will pay for all those studies in advance.
Yeah. So we're very clear, construction is not proceeding,
Yes.
but we don't have anything ready to go out for construction anyway. So that's not the issue. The planning was the big issue that we needed to have. It's the engineering is continuing though. I think that is that right?
That is true.
And so the engineering is not put on hold, construction is, but we don't have any right now planned. When would the soonest we would possibly have construction ready?
I think the soonest we would have bidding in front of you would be likely in that March of 2023 timeframe, where you'd have to consider whether you would move forward with those bids or not.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Osowski.
Hi. How much money is the city spending on a daily basis working on Fufang?
I don't know on a daily basis. I think last time Mr. Gostin and I took a look of what we've expended to date. It's less than $2 million since when we started this in February. So we're still well within that $5 million letter of credit. And we continue to monitor that. And you approve bills on a monthly basis of some of the engineering agreements. And so we're tracking that to make sure that we're well within our $5 million letter of credit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Phelan. Mayor and council member comments. Mr. Weigel, any comments this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Osowski, any further comments?
No, sir.
All right, Ms. Lunsky?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to the Grand Forks Police Department. I went on my first ride-along last week, and I will say it was very eye-opening to see the calls come in on a Wednesday evening between 5 and 8. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you do. I can't imagine that's an easy job to go to every day. I did a simulation where I was the police in a active shooter situation at a mall, and it was terrible. So thank you for everything you do for the city. And I also want to remind people, we've been talking about eagles a lot. So for all the hunters, lead poisoning for eagles skyrockets this time of year because they eat the fragments of lead. So, you know, since we're talking about eagles, please pay attention to when you're hunting.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsky. Mr. Convialmi, so we got Mr. Veen. Comments this evening?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to start out by letting everybody know my appreciation for the water supply presentation that was made a week ago. I thought there was good information supplied, that presenters put together the slides to make the presentation. I really want to hope we can keep that discussion moving forward. There are follow-up that needs to happen, and I'm still following up with some of my questions, but on a very basic standpoint, we had a lot of good information that was presented. I think the water supply is so critical a component that I hope and expect that we continue to get to the bottom of a number of the issues that we had. I thought it was important that we talked about the model and the state mod and being able to be predictive model. That was very helpful as we look to the future. The modeler and the team. The modeler and the team is excellent. I think we learned all of that yesterday or last week too, and a little bit more on the 2075 modeling demands that we had, and how that is a technical solution for the Red River Valley water supply, and how I feel that's the base for what we need to be managing to. I know there were some variations that were presented to that model. I'm concerned about the risk and uncertainty that comes with those variations. That's a part of where I think we have to have a lot more discussion and questions and the like. We do have to worry about a few of the other things that are kind of given that people wouldn't necessarily identify, such as Fargo return flows, Fargo bypass flows, our own bypass flows, what we're going to have to do. So I can drill down into a lot of the details that I think would bore most people, but they are really, really important and very critical to make sure that we have the water security that we need as we move forward. There was some discussion on the project participation agreement, and Mr. Gostin, I think you've gotten a copy of that. That's really critical moving forward. Not only the legal part, what I'm equally concerned about is the technical part about what's in that and how we use that agreement for the long, long term as we move forward. And one of the other things that I feel is the answer to all the things we had is the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. And that is the presentation about how we can get that accomplished. I know people will think I'm stuck on that. Well, guess what, I am. It's critical, and it needs to happen. There's a lot of hurdles to get over, though, to get that. And I think that's equally my concern. I've been working on it for a lot of years. We're in a better place than we've been before, but we still lack a state commitment for either the state funding of it, the local funding of it, a few other pieces that we have to get over. So I know I'm going to work diligently to try to get that through. I think this legislative session is going to be a really important one to see if we can make progress that we haven't necessarily had before. But I'm concerned that we have some of those answers before we move on fully. So I just wanted to bring that up to everybody's attention, and again, thank everybody for having the discussion and all the information. It was really helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. Any comments, Vice President Weber?
Thank you, Mayor. Recognizing that the decisions of the state legislature, including funding decisions, have a tremendous impact on our city. We're getting ready for the upcoming legislative session in 2023. This afternoon, the city's legislative committee met. Department heads have been monitoring the interim session over the last year and a half or so. Next Monday to Cal, the committee will be bringing forward a proposal for the city's legislative priorities. You'll see a list that's very similar, very familiar to what has been presented and approved in previous sessions, including Red River Valley Water Supply Project continues to be one of our top priorities there. So that'll come forward to Cal next Monday, and then final approval on November 7th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. President Sandy.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if people are aware, but the Metropolitan Planning Organization has a meeting on Wednesday the 19th. In September, the city of East Grand Forks petitioned the MPO to amend the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, in which sits the location of the intercity bridge. They asked specifically that the MPO would amend the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan to move the Bigland-Reinhardt roundabout from short range, 2023 to 2027, to a mid-range project from 2028 to 2037. During that meeting, Mark Demers asked why the roundabout projects need to be moved to the illustrative project list. The MPO responded, and I'm not sure who the MPO is, but they responded that this is what is communicated to the MPO. Mayor Gander was present at the meeting and commented that the conversation that he's been a part of inside City Hall, it would seem to make sense to move the Bigland-Reinhardt roundabout project to mid-range, and the MPO has made that adjustment to the request. Mr. Phelan, on September 27th, Mr. Brooks sent a letter to Ms. Halford at the MPO, thanking her for her call and stating that East Grand Forks has made this request. Since the projects are entirely located in Minnesota and they're only a minor change to the original plan, City of Grand Forks finds no significant impacts of the proposed change as it relates to the current plan, and therefore we do not require an amendment to change the Grand Forks comprehensive plan. First of all, I'm not sure that that shouldn't be mentioned to the council, that when the city of East Grand Forks is making what I believe is a significant change to their transportation plan, knowing full well that the majority of the people in the city of East Grand Forks that are complaining about not having an intercity bridge live south of the Bigland-Reinhardt intersection, and knowing full well that a roundabout placed at that location would significantly affect the transportation from north to south in East Grand Forks, making it significantly easier for people to travel from East Grand Forks to Grand Forks. I find it very odd that although they've had the money to pay for that roundabout, the mayor vetoed its installation once already, and now he is downgrading its importance to the city of East Grand Forks for their transportation plan, yet on the other hand is coming to Grand Forks saying, you're not being a good partner in helping us put in an intercity bridge. I find it very perplexing.
Council President Sandy, I wasn't aware of that. I think it's a really great item for the community as a whole. Next week, Monday, I would ask Stephanie Halford and the MPO to come over and provide an update briefing on what's been going on so that we get a full picture of that, and I would ask her to come next week, Monday.
And thank you, knowing full well that the current transportation plan was approved in January of 2019. The 2050 transportation plan will be coming out relatively soon, and they are starting public comment not too distant future. So I certainly think that it would be good for us, all of us, to hear an update from the MPO on what's going on in relation to transportation throughout East Grand Forks. Mayor, tonight we had a gentleman come to the council and say that he he wished that he had been better noticed related to the cutting of his grass. I'm starting to feel like a broken record, because I've been saying this for 12 years since I got on the council. We should have an opt-in database of phone numbers, cell phone numbers, organized by address, people's residences, so we can push information to them. I've said this dozens of times in these meetings. I don't know why this is hard for us. I'm not saying anyone is at fault, or I'm not saying people are dropping the ball. I'm just saying this seems like such an easy thing for us to do. I don't understand why we don't do it. Perhaps my thinking of the technology is much more advanced than it actually is. But I would once again, I don't know if Adam's here tonight. I know he's looked into this in the past. I know that there are issues to it. This can't be that hard. It just can't be. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, President Sandy. Only comment I'd make tonight is kind of parroting off of what Ms. Lunsky had said. There was a pretty scary moment at Red River High School. I believe it was last Thursday, where they'd received a phone call regarding an active shooter. I just want to really thank not only the GFPD, but the UPD, the Sheriff's Department. The response was exactly how it should have been. They had that building cleared in what I would say record time. And as scary as it was, it gave us a dry run, and we know that if that day ever came, that our officers are going to be there, and they're going to be knocking down that door in a hurry, not like what's happened in some other places. So just want to thank them for that. It's not certainly something we wanted to have on a Thursday morning, but they were ready. So with that, thank you. Thank you again to all the speakers and all the comments. Appreciate the feedback. And with that, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Well, that was quick. Mrs. Sosky. Got a motion? We have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.